By 1952, the front lines had stabilized roughly along the 38th parallel, where they would remain until the end of the war. Both sides engaged in trench warfare, with fortified positions and frequent small-scale battles. The skies over Korea were a different story. The air battles in MiG Alley between US F-86 Sabres and Soviet-piloted MiG-15s continued to dominate the air war. At the same time, U.S. aircraft carriers and the 1st Marine Air Wing also played a crucial role, providing significant air support and naval power. They launched fighter and bomber sorties aimed at achieving air superiority, protecting UN ground forces, and interdicting enemy supply routes. Planes from these carriers, such as F-4U Corsairs, AD Skyraiders, and F-9F Panthers, were crucial in sustaining air superiority. Fast Carrier Task Force TF-77 continued to carry out Operation Moonlight Sonata. This operation was designed to take advantage of the full moon in pre-dawn heckler strikes against locomotives and trains. 5 two-plane sections reconnoitered 50-mile stretches of track to locate, stop, and isolate locomotives for later strikes. The purpose of hecklers is the continuation during the night of a daytime attack against an enemy area. The planes attack at regular intervals throughout the night in an attempt to keep the enemy in a state of disorganization. Some material damage will be inflicted, but the greatest value of the hecklers is psychological. Korean War-era carriers commonly used hydraulic catapults, unreliable by today's standards, to launch the night airplanes. When ready to go, the night flyers felt the sharp jolt of the hydraulic cat as it shot them toward the stars. Flying formation between the ship and shore, they often climbed through clouds and then descended into the darkness below the overcast before sighting the land shown on their radar scopes. On moonlit nights, the night flyers had more success finding targets, but the North Korean gunners could see the hecklers. Before the end of the war, anti-aircraft fire along the major supply routes was very heavy. Consequently, the pilots had to compromise on a search altitude, lower to find targets, higher to avoid gunfire. When a pilot found a target, he attacked and directed his partner to the scene, generally marked by fires started by the first attack or the light of flares over the target. The night pilots trained hard to hit and destroy the relatively small targets with their cannons, bombs, and rockets. The 20mm cannon became the weapon of choice because a well-placed burst would stop a train or truck and possibly start a fire. Bombs finished the job. Neil Armstrong holds the distinction of being the first man to walk on the moon. He joined the Navy in 1949 as an aviator and flew combat missions up until February 25, 1952. In the last 2 years of that service, he flew 78 combat missions over Korea. Armstrong transitioned to the U.S. Naval Reserve and remained there for 8 years, until resigning from his commission in October 21, 1960. During his time in the Navy, Armstrong logged a total of 2,600 hours in flight, including 1,100 in jet aircraft. April 30th, USS Princeton CV-37 joined Fast Carrier Task Force for 2nd Korean deployment. While fueling and due to an engine casualty, USS Princeton CV-37 collided with USS Cacapon AO-52 in the operating area. No personnel casualties. A flight of 7 Panther jet aircraft from Marine Fighter Squadron 311 encountered MiG-15 aircraft at 20,000 feet in vicinity of Kunari. 1 F-9F-2 received major damage. 1 MiG-15 claimed damaged. May 22, USS Bataan CVL-29 suffered extensive damage and 4 personnel were wounded when a hung rocket exploded. Despite this, the warship remained operational. June 16, Fast Carrier Task Force TF-77 shifted tactics from routine rail interdiction strikes to scheduling maximum airstrikes using entire air group for destroying key rail and transportation centers. Planes employed radar countermeasures off the coast of Hungnam by dropping rope at 14,000 feet with a spread of 13 by 9 miles. The enemy fired moderate barges from Kawanetit and AA bursts were observed at 12,000 feet. Pilots reported that they believed the windshield was effective. June 23, USS Bon Richard CV-31, with CVG-7 embarked, rendezvoused with Task Force 77 for second cruise in Korean campaign. For CV, USS Philippines CV-47, USS Boxer CV-21, USS Princeton CV-37, and USS Bonham Richard CV-31 launched a total of 290 aircraft which teamed with Air Force in attacking the communist hydroelectric plant at Suho on the Yalu River and also the plants at Kayasan, Fusan. In all, 9 different hydroelectric plants were struck, and this marked the first time the enemy's power plants were attacked. It also marked the first time after the fall of 1950 that 4 CV operated together on the line. June 30th, Navy and Marine flights since beginning of the Korean War total to date was approximately 195,000. July 11th, a joint United Nations airstrike was made against industrial targets in Pyongyang, capital of North Korea, in one of the largest raids of the Korean War. Participating in the operation were aircraft from USS Princeton CVA-37, USS Bonham Richard CVA-31, HMS Ocean CVL, U.S. and Australian Air Forces, and U.S. Marine aircraft. July 13th, USS Princeton CVA-37 and USS Bonham Richard CVA-31 air groups flew first Task Force 77 close air support missions of 1952. August 6th, Marine aviators of MAG-33 flew 141 sorties today, a new record for the group. An explosion of a Panther jet aircraft on the hangar deck of USS Boxer CV-21 caused a fire which ignited gasoline and ammunition. 9 personnel including 1 officer died of smoke and burns. Helicopters and destroyers of Task Force 77 rescued 63 survivors from the sea. Fire was under control in few hours and the ship was still operational, although 12 planes and some aviation material were destroyed in the fire. August 18th, USS Bonham Richard CV-31 had been at sea for 50 consecutive days. This was the longest period for sustained operations by any carrier in Task Force 77 since the fall of 1950. August 20th, U.S. Navy, Marine, and Air Force aircraft teamed together in a tremendous mass attack on the large Korean West Coast supply area at Changpyeong-an. Pilots estimated 80% of the assigned area was destroyed. August 29th, largest air raid of Korean War to date. Task Force 77 carriers, in coordination with Air Force, Marine, British and Australian Air Forces, launched a strike of well over 1,000 aircraft against Pyongyang, destroying warehouses, gun positions, railroad cars, trucks, damaging rubber factory, oil tanks, and other targets. September 9th, 3 F-4Us from VMA 323 attacked by 4 MiGs. No hits by either side after 10-minute duel. F-4Us retained bombs throughout. 2 F-4Us from VMA 312 were also attacked by 4 MiGs. During ensuing action, Captain Jesse Falmer shot down 1 MiG, the first by an American propeller-driven aircraft. Captain Falmer, in turn, was hit by another MiG and forced to ditch at sea. 6–16 October, USS Sicily CVE-118 under operational control of CTF-90 for the Kojo mock invasion. VMA 312 aircraft provided close air support, combat air patrol, and naval gunfire spot as directed. October 8th, 11 B-29s of the FEAF Bomber Command and 89 Task Force 77 aircraft struck the Cowan Rail Center. B-29s carried VT-fused 500-pound cluster bombs for effective flak suppression. October 9th, Task Force 77 aircraft flew 91 missions supporting 10th Corps Army troops using the newly developed ground-coordinated strike technique against dug-in enemy troops. Emphasis on the interdiction campaign was reduced. Bridge and rail destruction were continued whenever feasible. October 28th, USS Oriskany CVA-34 joined Task Force 77 and launched first offensive strikes. This marked the first combat employment of the F-9F-5 Panther. A new record was set during October by Helicopter Transport Squadron 161 HMR 161, which evacuated 365 casualties during the month. November 2 aircraft from the USS Bonhomme Richards CVA-31 and the USS Oriskany CVA-34 attacked targets in the city of Pyongyang in the first of 3 major strikes against that city during a 5-day period. November 18, Task Force 77 pilots scored their kills on the enemy MiGs, and it was sweet revenge for the 2 carrier propeller aircraft that the MiGs had bagged earlier in the year. 35 miles north of the task force, a 4-plane F-9F-5 combat air patrol was attacked by 7 MiG-15s. 2 MiGs were destroyed by Lieutenant Elmer Royce Williams and Lieutenant Junior Grade John Middleton, while only 1 F-9F-5 was damaged. December 8, USS Essex CVA-9 aircraft raided railroad facilities at Hanyang, the northernmost raid to date of the Korean War. This video concludes the coverage of U.S. naval aviation during the Korean War in 1952. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment to support our efforts in producing more high-quality content.